The first time Lyris saw a human, she laughed. Not just a small laugh, an uncontrollable, shoulder-shaking, tail-flicking laugh that echoed through the metallic corridors of Station Arcturon. "You're telling me," she said between giggles, "that this species conquered 3 pirate fleets and survived the Black Nebula?" Her violet eyes scanned the small holographic image hovering above the table. The creature on display looked fragile, soft skin, no claws, no visible armor. Just a human. Across the table, Captain Vorik folded his forearms and sighed. "Humans are unpredictable," he said. "That makes them dangerous." Lyris waved a dismissive hand. "Dangerous? Please. My hatchlings could defeat one." A few nearby officers chuckled quietly. Lyris was known for her confidence. Some would say arrogance. She was young, brilliant, and recently promoted to tactical strategist for the Galactic Coalition. Her predictions were usually correct, and that made her believe she was rarely wrong. But today, the Coalition had invited a human representative to participate in a strategic simulation. And Lyris thought the entire thing was ridiculous. "Fine," she said, leaning back in her chair. "Let the human try the war simulation. I'll defeat him in less than 10 minutes. Captain Vorik's eyes narrowed. "You're certain?" "Completely." The captain tapped the table. "Careful, Lyris. Humans enjoy wagers." Lyris smirked. "Then I suppose I should make one." The simulation chamber looked like a floating galaxy. Holographic stars glittered in the dark room, and dozens of tactical consoles surrounded a massive projection of space. This was where the Coalition tested war strategies. Lyris stood confidently at her command station. Across the chamber stood the human. He looked ordinary. Short, dark hair, calm brown eyes, a simple uniform, no weapons, no armor. He studied the holographic battlefield quietly, as if it were a puzzle. Lyris crossed her arms. "This is the great human warrior?" She almost laughed again. The human looked up. "You must be Lyris," he said politely.
His voice was calm.
"Friendly even." "Yes," she replied. "And you're the human?" "Daniel." He extended his hand. Lyris hesitated. She had studied humans briefly in the Coalition database. Handshakes were a greeting gesture, as she awkwardly shook his hand. "Interesting," she muttered. Daniel smiled slightly. "I've been told you're the Coalition's best strategist." "Correct." "Well," he said, glancing at the glowing star map, "this should be fun." Before the simulation began, Lyris raised her voice. "I'd like to propose a wager." The room grew quiet. Daniel tilted his head. "A wager?" "Yes." She pointed to the battlefield projection. "If I defeat you in this simulation, you admit humans are overrated." Daniel chuckled softly. "And if I win?" Lyris shrugged. "You won't." The human crossed his arms, thinking. Finally, he said, "All right. But if I win, you owe me a favor." "A favor?" she repeated. "Yes." "What kind?" He smiled. "I'll decide after the match." The officers watching from the observation deck murmured. Captain Vorik rubbed his temples. "This is a terrible idea," he muttered. But the wager had already been made. The simulation began. A digital voice echoed through the chamber. "Scenario: border conflict. Commanders will control fleets across 3 star systems." Holographic ships appeared.
Hundreds of them.
Lyris' eyes lit up. Finally, she moved her hands across the control panel with expert precision. "Deploying interceptors to Gamma Gate," she announced. Her ships moved instantly across the projection. She launched scouting drones, set defensive formations, prepared ambush points. It was flawless.
Perfect strategy.
She glanced across the room. Daniel wasn't moving. He simply watched the battlefield. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Thinking." "You're wasting time?" "Maybe." Finally, Daniel touched his console. A handful of ships moved. Only a few. Lyris frowned. That's it? He wasn't defending properly. He wasn't securing supply routes. He was barely doing anything. This will be over quickly, she said. And it was. Just not the way she expected. 10 minutes later, Lyris frowned. 15 minutes later, she leaned forward. 20 minutes later, her confidence vanished. Wait, what? Her fleet was collapsing. But Daniel hadn't attacked directly. Instead, he had done something strange. He sacrificed ships. Small groups of them. Over and over. At first, Lyris thought it was incompetence. Then she realized something terrifying. Every mistake had forced her fleet into new positions. Closer together. Closer to a region of space she had ignored. A nebula. Her eyes widened. Impossible. Daniel finally spoke. You like perfect formations, he said calmly. Yes. So, I gave you what you wanted. The holographic nebula suddenly exploded with hidden mines. Her entire fleet was trapped. The simulation voice spoke. Coalition fleet destroyed. Silence filled the room. Lyris stared at the projection. She had lost. Completely. Captain Vorik slowly covered his face. I warned you. Lyris turned toward Daniel slowly. You cheated. He blinked. I didn't. You sacrificed ships. Yes. That's inefficient. Daniel shrugged. Not if it wins. The observers above were whispering excitedly. The human had defeated the coalition's best strategist. Lyris clenched her fists. Her tail twitched in frustration. This was luck. Maybe. Run it again. Daniel smiled. Sure. They ran the simulation again. And again. And again. 3 times. 4. 5. Each time, Lyris lost. Not always the same way. Sometimes Daniel tricked her. Sometimes he outmaneuvered her. Once he simply waited until she made a mistake. After the 6th match, Lyris leaned back in her chair. Her pride was shattered. The human walked over calmly. Well, he said gently, looks like I win the wager. Lyris groaned. Yes. The officers watched eagerly. What's the favor? She asked bitterly. Daniel pretended to think deeply. Don't make it ridiculous. He snapped his fingers. I've got it. She narrowed her eyes. This better not be humiliating. Oh, it will be a little embarrassing. Lyris groaned again. Fine. What is it? Daniel grinned. You have to spend 1 full day learning human strategy for me. She blinked. That's it. Yep. That's the price. Yep. She crossed her arms. That's not punishment. Daniel shrugged. It's not supposed to be. She stared at him suspiciously. Why? He leaned against the console. Because you're brilliant. She blinked. But you rely too much on perfection. He gestured toward the holographic battlefield. Humans win because we embrace chaos. Lyris was silent. For the first time since the simulation began, she wasn't angry. She was curious. The next day, Lyris found herself sitting in a human training room. Daniel stood in front of a whiteboard. This, he said, drawing a messy diagram, is a terrible strategy. Lyris frowned. It looks ridiculous. Exactly. He drew arrows pointing everywhere. Now imagine your enemy is overthinking. She tilted her head. They would assume this is a trick. Correct. And react cautiously. Daniel pointed at her. Which gives you control. Her eyes widened slowly. Oh. They spent hours discussing tactics. Improvisation. Deception. Psychology. Things Lyris had never considered important. But humans did. Daniel leaned back in his chair. You don't always win by being perfect. How do you win? She asked. He smiled. By being unpredictable. Later that evening, they returned to the simulation chamber. Another match? Daniel asked. Lyris smiled slightly. Yes. The simulation began again. Ships appeared. Stars shimmered. Daniel watched her carefully. This time, Lyris made strange moves. Risky ones. Imperfect ones. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Oh. 20 minutes later, the simulation voice spoke. Human fleet destroyed. Daniel laughed loudly. Well done. Lyris grinned proudly. I learned from the best. Captain Vorik watched from the observation deck. He shook his head. Incredible. Another officer asked, Who won the wager? Vorik smiled. Both of them. As the chamber lights dimmed, Lyris looked at Daniel. I suppose humans aren't overrated. He chuckled. And aliens aren't as arrogant as I thought. She flicked her tail playfully. Careful, human. Why? Next time we bet. Her violet eyes sparkled. I might win. Daniel grinned. I hope so. Because the truth was simple. The wager had changed both of them. The alien girl who believed in perfection had learned the power of chaos. And the human who loved chaos had found someone brilliant enough to challenge him. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, that partnership would one day change the fate of entire worlds.